Welcome to Toy Polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from Toy Polloi, and in today's video we're going to be looking at doing some repair and restoration work on this vintage real Ghostbusters ghost trap. Now this was sent in to me fairly recently, and when you look at it initially you think actually it's not too bad looking, but it is missing one key thing, and that is the handle. So without the handle it's really not much of a ghost trap, and we're going to be trying to work out a way to fix that today, along with there's a few other little minor issues that the trap has. So let's get on with the project. Okay, so here is the ghost trap, and as I said in the intro, you know, when you initially look at it, it doesn't look too bad at all. There's some minor wear around the edges because it's obviously been played with. It's a bit dusty and a bit dirty, but the main problem is that it is missing the handle. There should be a handle here that you can grip to pick the toy up, sort of move it around as you see it in the movies, and that is completely missing. So we're going to have to work out a way to make something to replace that. You can see it's actually snapped off. The remains of the screw is on the inside there. The trap does actually work. You press this rubber sort of pusher here and the trap will open. So if I do that, give it a good squeeze, you can see everything about that part is working. The tube itself is a little bit pinched where it goes into the main toy, so I think we can try and sort of sort that out, get that reshaped just using some hot water. It is dirty as well, so it does need a bit of a good clean. The stickers aren't in too bad condition. We've got one sticker there, one on the side and one on the front which has been sort of misplaced, so I do want to try and reposition. Now I'm also going to make some replacements, so if you have a ghost trap yourself that's missing those stickers, I will make a replacement file that you can download and print yourself. But yeah, the first thing to do is sort out this missing handle. I think we can do all of that from the outside, and then we'll take this apart later on and give it a good clean once we have to get to the internal bit. But let's work out a way to make a replacement handle.
Shall we fix some toys?
So I've done some research online looking at photos of what this should look like, and the original handle is just a blue piece of plastic. It's got a bit of a taper to it. The front end is a little bit odd because it is shaped to match the curve of this sort of piece here. So it is a sort of curved piece, curved inwards like that. But really the basic shape is just a tube. So what I did was I've measured the distance between these two pieces, and it turns out that that is 20 millimeters. So I've been onto eBay and I bought myself a tube which just happens to have a 20 millimeter diameter, and that looks like that is going to fit pretty perfectly. So that's going to be the basis of our replacement handle. I think a piece of that cut to size so that you can grip it and maybe add a few little details to it. We're certainly going to have to shape the end of it to match the original one. But I think that is not going to look too bad at all, especially when it's painted. Again, looking at the original sort of handle, the handle isn't particularly long. You can see where the tube goes in, this the yellow hose. It actually comes to about there, which is pretty sensible when you're making a toy. Make everything sort of roughly the same length. So we're going to have to cut this fairly short. It feels a little bit short for an adult hand, but I think for a child's hand that's probably the right size. So that's the length we're going to cut it to. So what we're going to do is shape this, and as I say, it needs to match the curve of this little piece here. So what I've already done is actually mark that on the end of this tube. You can see I've got that curve drawn on, and all I did to do that was I held it onto the toy and I've drawn a pencil line around it, and then I sort of rotated it by 180 and done the same on the bottom. And so we're going to have to cut this rather awkward looking shape out of the end of this tube and then cut this to length. So that's the first thing to do. Let's get cutting. So here is the shape that I've made, and I'm actually really happy with how it's turned out. You can see this end piece now fits pretty closely to the original, and that's how the original one looks, with this sort of strange cutout. It was slightly sort of perplexing to me how I was going to do that, so I drilled some holes and then cut it with some plastic nippers. But then while I was doing that, I realised the easiest way to do the sort of shaping is wrap some sandpaper around another piece of the pipe, and then you can just rub this along the sandpaper, and because the sandpaper is curved at the same angle that you want this to be curved, with a bit of a sort of to and fro, you can end up with the right shape. And I then cut this off to be about the correct length. That's just done by eye. I wanted it to be about the same sort of length as this post. I've actually made it a little bit longer because for me it would just be a bit too short. So that's the sort of main part of that post, and then everything has been sanded down with some 1000 grit sandpaper just to give it a bit of a key, because this is PVC pipe. I was hoping to get some styrene pipe, but I could only get PVC pipe. So when I'm going to paint it, I want the paint to key onto it pretty well, so the sanding it with 1000 grit sandpaper should allow that to work. Now we actually need to take the rest of this ghost trap apart, because I've got to get inside and see how it should be attached. You can just see the remnants of a screw there, and we're going to have to make something that a new screw can go into, and maybe add something inside that the screw can sort of really screw into as well, so that this is extra strong. I also want to add a few little details to this. Looking at photos of the original ghost trap, there's a couple of bits of plastic along either edge. I'm guessing that's just to allow this to line up, and then as I say, this does taper down on the original, which is something I can't do here, but I might add some details, just some extra bits of styrene sheet and things just along it, just to make it look a little bit more sort of interesting before we go ahead and paint it. But let's take this apart. It just looks like there are 5 screws on the bottom, so undo that and we'll see what it's like inside. I'm also going to give it a quick clean once I've got everything in pieces, but we should be able to see how this needs to be attached at that point. Of course, this sticker goes across the join. I hadn't sort of paid attention to that, so I'm going to try and carefully remove that just using some lighter fluid. Worst case is I just have to cut along the seam there with a knife so that we can get these 2 pieces apart. I've already taken some photos of this sticker because, as I say, I'm going to be recreating them, so we'll try and get this off. I've just got some standard lighter fluid here. This is normally pretty good at dissolving our old glue, so if I just liberally put that around the edge, hopefully we will be able to lift this sticker up. But as I say, worst case, I'm going to recreate it anyway. But let's see what happens. You just get a knife, and I'm hoping I can get underneath the edge of this. And once you start to get under the edge, you can then put a bit more lighter fluid on. And it will start to dissolve the glue. It's a sort of a tricky process. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on how old these stickers are, and you know, how long they've been sort of stuck on, and whether it's been stored in sunlight or anything like that, because that will dry the glue out differently. And this one feels like it's starting to go. Actually, yeah, I can feel that going. So let me just put more lighter fluid on. You really just have to soak it with lighter fluid. The lighter fluid will evaporate in the end, so you just need to get the glue loosening. That's actually coming off really easily. That's pretty good. Okay, that was lucky. It's come off, and that also means that I can scan that one in. So I'm just going to put that to one side, and that should mean we can now get this ghost trap apart. And we can, look at that. So here's the top section, which is the blower piece, or the bit that moves when you push that little plunger in. Oh, I can see, right, so we've got a slightly oiled piece there. There's the hose, which is a little bit bent and yeah, got a few distortions to it, but I think a bit of hot water should fix that. So I'm just going to put that to one side. This is a greased sort of piece as well. I can see there's grease on it, so I'm not going to wash that because I want to keep that as is. And then we can get to this section. Here are the ghost trap doors, which look like they can be removed, but in this instance there's no point in me doing that. And there we can get to the piece that is the broken part, which the handle is attached to. So I can see if I unscrew that, all right, everything is moving, so I'm going to have to get a pair of pliers just to hold that so I can unscrew it. And that is the piece that we're going to have to sort of recreate. So I think I've probably got a piece of plastic tube or something that I might be able to make a new post, and we can glue that on then I'm definitely going to need a longer screw, because the screw is going to have to go all the way into my new handle. I don't want to just attach it to a piece that I stick onto this. It's not going to be strong enough. I need a screw that goes all the way into this piece and then has an extra piece of fixing on it. But yeah, let's get that unscrewed, and I'm going to give all of these pieces a good clean while it's all apart. So everything has now had a good clean, and it's looking a whole lot better. And actually, before I did the cleaning, I removed all of the stickers and I've put them safely here, because they were coming off so easily with the lighter fluid. It's just easier to clean things when there are no stickers on, because you don't then have to worry about them getting wet. So those I will replace later on. But as you can see, everything is now looking nice and clean. And I also managed to get the kink out of this tube. And to do that, it's a simple method. I just boiled up some water, put it in a cup, and then carefully sort of dip this in to warm up the plastic and then let it reshape. And as you can see, now it's cooled off, that kink has gone. It may well come back, you know, because I think that's just the sort of a design flaw in this toy, that you've got the bit of tube that sort of is then resting against hard plastic, so it may well come back. But for now, that has all gone. So now we can sort of try and work out how we are going to connect this new handle. And what I've done is I've drilled a hole in the bottom of it. I basically lined this up like that so that it's in the right position, turned it over, and I've drilled a hole through. And I've been out into my garage to see what sort of screws I can find, and I found this one, which I think may be a bit too long, and it's a little bit thicker, but I'm looking for something that's got a real bit of strength to it. You can see the tiny screw that was there originally, and that just screwed into a small post, which is why it has snapped off. My plan now is to go all the way through and into this whole pipe here, which is a nice big thick pipe. It's got about a sort of, I'm going to say that's sort of 2mm thick wall. And I reckon if we screw into that, that will actually form a very sort of strong fixing, and then I can add a few details around the edges. I may end up sort of chopping the top of this screw off. I think this screw is actually going to be too long. It's going to end up coming through the top, but I'll just initially sort of place it in. Then if it feels like it's going to be right, I'm going to trim this screw down. So let's just see what happens when I fit this. It's going to be a fairly tight fit into this hole. It may end up just widening the hole a little bit because the screw is slightly bigger, because I want it to be that bit stronger. So yeah, that's fitting in nicely. So if I put this on here, get that lined up, hopefully when I start screwing this in, it will just hit into the hole that I've already put there, which it does feel like it is. That's good. So let's screw this in a bit more and see what happens. Okay, that is working. You can see the screw has come through, which is something I knew was going to happen, but that is pretty strong. So what I need to do is actually sort of measure this a bit more carefully, so I can then trim this screw down and make sure that it is the right length, and then we'll screw it on properly. But you can see that is going to work, and that actually looks pretty reasonable. Right, a quick trim later. You can see that I've actually trimmed that screw down, and now that handle fits on really nicely. That is a pretty firm fitting, and I'm very happy with how it's starting to look. It's about the right sort of shape, as I said, so it's possibly a little bit long, but I'm happy with that. It's just a bit plain. The original one had a taper, so from about there onwards it tapered down to be a bit thinner. Obviously I can't do that, but I think I maybe can add sort of a bit of a ridge or something here just to make it look a bit more handly. And then on the original one as well, it had two little lines of plastic on either side, so one here and one here. I think those are just there on the original toy just as a way of lining up this piece so that when you screw it in, it all lines up neatly. So I'm going to add those pieces on, and then just some other sort of little details if I think they're going to work. So I've got some very thin styrene sheet, some 0.5mm styrene sheet, and I'm going to start trying to glue that onto here and make little shapes with it. Normally I would use plastic weld because styrene is great with plastic weld, but this is PVC pipe, so PVC pipe won't work with plastic weld, so I'm going to be using super glue, and that's why I'm using the 0.5 millimeter thick styrene sheet, because it's very easy to bend, and I think super glue will hold it in place as well. We'll just see what happens. But yeah, so far I am really pleased with how this is all going. It's looking pretty good, and by the time that is all painted up, I don't think you'll notice that that is a replacement handle. And there we go, there's just a few little details added. So I've added the little bar along the edge, which is what you have on the original. And then I've just added one tiny strip of 0.5 millimeter styrene just around there, just to add a little bit of sort of interest. At the moment, obviously, everything is quite clearly different coloured bits of plastic. But once this is made all blue, I think it's just going to add that little bit of detail that you need. And it actually means when you hold this now, you've got something to sort of hold on to. And I think it's going to work pretty nicely. So the next thing to do is get this all painted. I'm going to have to head down the shops and see if I can find a blue spray paint that is a close match to this. I'm hoping there'll be a blue that's sort of quite nice and vibrant. But I will only find out when I go and have a look and see what they've got in stock. But first thing I will do is actually give this a coat of a plastic primer, which will sort of bond very nicely to the surface of this, as I have already sanded it. Then I'll spray paint it with whatever blue paint I find, and then I'm going to add a clear semi-gloss coat to it as well, because you can see this plastic has a bit of a sheen to it, and then that will hopefully match as close as I can get, and then we'll put everything back together. So let's get this part painted. And here we have the handle all painted, and you can see the blue that I managed to get of the rattle can spray paint was a pretty close match. It's not a perfect match, but I think for an off-the-shelf spray paint, it's as close as I'm going to get. And I think by the time that's in place, I'm going to be very happy with it. So now we can go ahead and fit this. At the moment, you can see there was just a screw in there. I put a screw in just so I could hold it while I was spray painting it. So we can remove that screw. And now I've still got the screw left in the top here. All we have to do is screw that on. And you can see that's going to look like that. Yeah, I think that is going to look really pretty nice. So let's get that screwed on, and then we'll put the rest of this ghost trap back together. To put the ghost trap together, you actually have to sort of work on the top section, but upside down, because everything sort of rests on this. So we need to get the plunger section first, and you can see on the plunger section there was this red bar with two holes on either side, and those line up with little posts on the actual sort of flaps of the ghost trap. So you have to carefully sort of position that in and make sure those posts go into the holes on the red bar, and then we can push that down like so, and it lines up on these two screw posts here. So we just have to hold that in place for the moment. Then we have to put the wheels in, and we've got the four wheels, and you can see two of the wheels actually go on the underside of the plunger, so we put those either side there. Then the other wheels go on these little sort of grooves at this end. So we've got to put that there and that one there. Then we have a button, this red button that goes on this left-hand side of the trap. That just rests in there, and I think I'm just going to have to hold that with my finger and make sure that sort of stays in place. Now for the tricky bit, because we have to put the bottom on and make sure this hose doesn't get caught as well. So we have to sort of carefully line the hose up. As I said, that button's going to be a bit tricky, so I'll just carefully put that back. And then we get the bottom section of the trap and we can drop that on. Hopefully everything will stay in place as I do this. Make sure everything lines up. Make sure the hose isn't trapped, which it isn't. And now we can put those 5 screws back in place. So there's 4 on the bottom and then 1 just on the rear post there. So let's screw those in and we'll see what the ghost trap looks like. Now we come on to the stickers, which I removed earlier in this restoration. If you're missing the stickers on your own ghost trap, what I've done is actually scanned in the stickers that I took off. I've taken those into Photoshop and worked them up and tidied them up, and that file will now be available for free on toypolloi.com. So if you need some replacement stickers for your ghost trap, go to toypolloi.com, download that file, print it onto some glossy sticky backed printer paper, and you'll be good to go. But what we've got to do here is actually reapply these stickers. Now they do have a little bit of stick left on them. When you take them off with lighter fluid, you don't really remove all of the stickiness from the stickers, but we need to add a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is just use some Pritt stick, and that will help me reapply these stickers to the toy, and it doesn't do any damage to the plastic. So let's get these stickers reapplied, and then we can look at the finished ghost trap.
Toypolloi.
And here we go, here is the finished real Ghostbusters ghost trap, and I'm really pretty pleased with how this has turned out. The colour match on the handle is not perfect, but it is close enough, and the real thing that I wanted to do with this is just get it all working again, and this handle is now very firmly held in place, and you can actually play with this toy again, so it's doing everything I wanted it to do. The trap does work, so if I press the button here, you can see it opens up and we can actually go and catch some ghosts. All of the stickers have been reapplied and they are now applied in the correct position, so that has fixed all of that. Yeah, overall I'm just very happy with how this has turned out. It may be in future I find myself another ghost trap that is broken and I can replace the handle with an original one, but for now this is going to be good enough to go on display here, and I think most people seeing it wouldn't even notice that handle had been replaced. It just does everything it needs to do. So I do need to say a big thank you to Elliot, who very kindly sent this in as a project. It's really been great fun to work on, so massive thanks to him. If you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And if you've really enjoyed it and want to help Toy Polloi, then why not think about becoming a Patreon or YouTube channel member. You get early access to all of my restoration videos and access to an exclusive video series called On the Cutting Mat, which you'll see projects that you won't be seeing anywhere else on this channel. So have a think about that, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Toy Polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.